my dude. So the mind goes blank. It's funny, the most I want to say in these videos needs to be said without any words, just silence, just peaceful, tranquil, quiet. Apart from the slapping chop sound of my dog feeding himself blackberries direct from the bush. I think I'm going to be a bit vulnerable here and just put out something that I don't know if other guys are experiencing, but it was something that quite profound that happened to me the other day. So I don't have any friends, which may sound really sad, but I'm okay with that. And when I say I don't have friends, what I mean is I don't have those companions that pop round for a cup of tea. I don't drink, so I don't go to the pub. I don't have people that I have common interests with, you know. I'm not an antisocial or unsociable person. And I know this because of my work as a nurse requires me to be extremely social, to listen, think and feel for others and be compassionate and understanding, sometimes calmly assertive. But I don't have anybody in my life other than my lovely wife and my dogs and my family. And I never really thought about it until the other day. I decided to apply for a new passport. And when you apply for a new passport, you have to get somebody to confirm your identity, and it can't be somebody that you're related to or that you live with. So in other words, it has to be a friend or a co-worker. It was at that moment that I realised I've got nobody that I could actually message, email, text and say, hey Bob, I'm getting a new passport, can you just identify me as being me and blah blah blah. So it was a little bit awkward. So in my job as a nurse in critical care, obviously you develop some very, very strong bonds with people. You go through some very traumatic, challenging experiences with your patients and with the unit itself. And there's a few people there, a handful out of the many that I work with, that I would trust my life with if I needed to. And one person I asked stepped up, and when I said, would you mind confirming my identity, and said yes, and it all went through. But I spoke to my wife about it, about saying, I don't have any friends, and I thought, how does it get to the situation, to the point where a grown man of 52 years old, who's sort of relatively successful in life, doesn't have friendly bonds with people outside of like functional arenas, functional places of work and business and things like that, And I thought, can I be the only guy that's actually in this sort of situation, I mean, we've been through COVID, we've been through, the world's changing all the time, there's wars happening all the time, demographics are changing, people are changing, the boomers are starting to slide off the planet, the Gen Z and millennials are all starting to have their impact on the world, and things are changing a lot. But how did I get to a point where I live quite a solitary life? And don't get me wrong, I don't dislike my life. I'm not lonely. I enjoy my own time, and I do things that are solo activities, running, burpee training. I'm a one-man boss when it comes to building dog parks and running dog parks, and you have to integrate with other people, and no man is an island. But how did we get into a position where a fully grown man doesn't have a social circle? And is it a bad thing? I mean, when I was travelling, the greatest thing I found when I was travelling was, eye contact across the room, the spontaneous conversation, the turning of a corner and meeting somebody, and those spontaneous conversations and the people that you met and you travelled with for maybe half a day, 3 days, a week or whatever, were some of the most euphoric, sublime, beautiful human interactions you could ever have. And I still do that in a way today. Whenever I'm around people and in new environments, I speak to people and I give eye contact and you have these random conversations, but it's not quite like travelling because the flow isn't really there, So I'm not really trying to make any point here. It's really just a question, are there millions of guys like me rolling through YouTube videos, being entertained, listening to guys like me just wandering around with cameras? Are we doing it because we don't have these social circles, or the social circles that we have, don't really fulfill the needs anymore of, the person that we are, How many of your social groups and social connections would you drop if you had the choice and there was no guilt, no shame, it wasn't frowned upon, if you just calmly and quietly just move away from certain social situations? If you could do that, would you do it? And if you could do that, what's stopping you from doing that? I'm not saying dump all your friends. I'm saying, how do you move on to a different stage of your life if you're hanging on to all of these small social groups? And I think that's probably what the unconscious intention of where I am now is, that I'm a bit of a rolling stone. I don't do most of the normal societal practices. I spend a lot of time on my own. Jumper! I spend a lot of time on my own with my dogs, and it's just one of those things. That's what it feels like to me. It's just one of those things, But am I odd? Am I a bit of a freak? Is there anybody else out there, any guys like in the UK that just come across this video and thinking, that's me? And if we are in this situation, how do you make friends? How do you go out? I mean, we can't. It's not like when we were kids and we could walk up to someone and kick a ball, and the next thing you know, you'd be best mates for the next 5 years. And to walk into a bar, start talking to guys, it's a little bit odd in some certain situations. And there are men talking groups and things like that. But again, you've got stigma and all this sort of stuff attached to it. So what would you do? I mean, if you was in my situation, maybe put something in the comments, or if you've been in the situation, how did you change it? Or did you bother to change it? Are you happy with it? Or if you've got social circles that you don't really want to be involved in anymore, like how have you moved away from them and done something different? Because making change in your life unsettles people around you. People don't want to change, and when they see you changing, it brings things up within them that can be quite daunting, make them feel quite vulnerable. Jumper, come on, you can't eat all the berries, mate. Good boy. Yeah. So yeah, just putting it out there. It was just a strange thing that happened and brought to my own attention that basically, I've got a very small social circle. I'm happy and stuff, but yeah. I think one of the things I'm going to do is just tag along to a local running club, just meet some people. But again, it's just to run with people. I'm not sure I want to go to develop any sort of, long-term relationships, or make it an intention, or force anything, or, maybe it's just Gen Xers. We're just very capable people, very resourceful people who rely on ourselves and are not afraid to learn new things and get stuck in and make do with what we have, I don't know. If you're in this situation, just put something down in the comments like, me too, mate. Maybe not me too, but something anyway. Right, dude, you can't eat all the blackberries. See you next time.